It's May of 2020. You've been sitting in your room for 72 hours, playing Animal Crossing, making whipped coffee, and mindlessly scrolling through the newly popular app TikTok, when all of a sudden you come across a TikTok of a Perks of Being a Wallflower edit with the song When the Sun Hits playing in the background. In the ever-evolving landscape of music, trends come and go, but some genres have a timeless feeling that captivates generation after generation. And that brings us to the topic of today, shoegaze, otherwise mistaken for shoegaze or shoegaze? Question mark? A genre that emerged in the late 1980s, characterized by its swirling guitars, ethereal vocals, and dense layers of sound. Despite its origins being a little over 3 decades ago, shoegaze is experiencing huge resurgence in 2024, capturing the attention of a lot of younger bands. But what is it about shoegaze that continues to intrigue listeners today? To understand the resurgence of shoegaze, I want to do a quick little recap about the genre. Everyone's heard the story of why shoegaze got its name in the first place. The British press were seeing these bands continuously stare at their shoes instead of at the audience at their shows, when after all, the musicians had to focus on numerous music effect pedals while they were playing. And from that, shoegaze was born. There are lots of lush layers of reverb and delay that creates a dreamlike soundscape for the listener. In a world filled with chaos and uncertainty, shoegaze offers a form of escapism, a sonic atmosphere where listeners can drown out the noise and just find a moment of peace. Shoegaze originated in the late 1980s and early 90s in the UK from bands like My Bloody Valentine and Slowdive, and some of their biggest albums being Loveless and Souvlaki. These bands began experimenting with noise, feedback, and innovative guitar effects, laying the groundwork for what would become shoegaze. And at the time, there were so many bands to come out of the newer genre, such as Chapter House, Catherine Wheel, Swerve Driver, The Jesus and Mary Chain, Love's Lies Crushing, Lilies, Lush, Swallow, Twirlies, Drop 19s, Medicine, and arguably Ride. I think I covered my bases with most of them, so I don't get the "you forgot the bit." No, shh, you're annoying. Their innovative use of guitar feedback, reverb, and distortion combined with melodic dreamlike vocals define the shoegaze aesthetic, setting the foundation for what would evolve and resonate with audiences for years to come. Sadly, by the mid-1990s, shoegaze started to kind of fizzle out a little bit, and was slowly being overshadowed by the rise of Britpop.
BBC Two now brings you the very best of British pop.
So for the next 45 minutes, enjoy some of the best music in the world, the new Britpop.
I am so sad.
However, shoegaze never entirely disappeared. A dedicated fan base and critical respect helped keep the genre alive, leading to a little bit of a revival in the early 2010s with bands like Nothing, Ringo Death Star, and Def Cult, leading us all the way to today, 2024. How and why is shoegaze more popular than it ever has been? Slowdive having 2.8 million monthly listeners and a brand new album from 2023, as well as My Bloody Valentine coming in at 1.2 million monthly listeners, but sadly having their last tour back in 2018. However, the last time I checked, there were 273,299 people on Songkick waiting for a tour announcement from them. I guess we'll see. Why is shoegaze one of the most influential, well-received genres today? And the burning question, why are bands still gazing at their shoes in the 21st century? In a reality where you can find everything and anything online.
God, I love this song. I actually know it on guitar if you want me to play it for you. Gotta give me an HJ first though.
Shoegaze started to slowly gain its popularity back in the beginning of 2020. The pandemic was such a rough time, forcing people to confront feelings of isolation, uncertainty, and introspection. Having to deal with this led to everyone coming to one place where everyone can feel as a community, and that was TikTok. This time of social distancing really set the stage for the interest in shoegaze. Many people were feeling very disconnected and sad and just needed an escape. The ethereal tones and layered textures of shoegaze offered people that escape, which then led to the genre getting more attention than it has in the past 10 years. There were so many people starting trends using songs from My Bloody Valentine and Slowdive specifically that very quickly became a staple on TikTok, from outfit of the day videos to hair tutorials to relatable angsty sentences mentioning your ex-boyfriend who still talks to the girl that he cheated on you with. Hearing that, would you start to think shoegaze was more of a personality lifestyle type rather than a genre? To some extent, yes. If you look at almost any genre, there are a lot of stylistic and lifestyle choices within the genre. For example, pop punk fans liking Vans, flannels, eating pizza, and just really wanting to leave their hometown. That was me. Or in 2014 during the Tumblr era of Lana Del Rey, the 1975, and the Arctic Monkeys. Everyone wore fishnet stockings, black clothes, chokers, striped tees, and Mary Janes. The only difference between the resurgence of shoegaze and then the other ones that I mentioned, and many others, is that we now live in a time of algorithms and music is just increasingly accessible, whereas back then it wasn't. And at some point you probably will hear everything and anything. Okay, leaving the conversation of shoegaze being a lifestyle, why has it become so popular in the past few years? My guess was that the popularity of TikTok and people just wanting to come together, have a community, and just feel like they're having a warm hug within music. However, the whole point of this video is to just figure out why shoegaze has become so popular, and I wanted to go to the sources themselves, Gen Z, and hear everything and anything that they have to say about shoegaze in 2024. I asked 300 Gen Zers to fill out a questionnaire about everything and anything shoegaze, and some of the responses made me tear up, but some of them also made me laugh. One of the things I was most curious about was, how did you even hear about shoegaze in the first place? Thinking TikTok would obviously be number one given how popular it'd become over the pandemic. However, I was very wrong. A little under half of the people mentioned finding shoegaze from family and friends, while only 8.3% of the 300 people found shoegaze from TikTok. And then Spotify coming in second place with 14.3% of the group really made me think that Spotify and music platforms really had something to do with the resurgence of shoegaze. Some of them mentioned how Spotify basically fed them shoegaze without even actively listening to the genre before. Discover Weekly was also mentioned a few times in there. Or just hearing about it from meme pages and heading to Spotify, and then the rest is kind of history. Speaking of being fed shoegaze, I actually reached out to Spotify just because I love hearing increases, especially in music, and that's something that Spotify could tell me. I asked them some very niche questions regarding shoegaze and Gen Z, and they actually had those numbers. So to start off pretty tame, the annual streaming of shoegaze from 2018 to 2023 in the US specifically increased 250%, while globally it was also 250%. One of the questions that I was really curious about was hearing numbers for the increased daily search result for shoegaze. And the global total increase from 2020 is 775%, while the US total increase from 2020 was 800%. We're just getting higher as we go. I also wanted to know the daily addition of shoegaze songs to specific playlists. The global total increase from 2019 was 465%, while the US total increase since 2019 was actually at 450%. And again, this is just such a big jump. It is very shocking to me. And lastly, the one that shocked me the most, hands down out of any of the questions that I asked them, was I wanted to know the daily addition of shoegaze songs to user playlists with increase for Gen Z specifically, and actually very surprised that they have this stat. But again, this number, the Gen Z US total increase since 2019 is 1100%, while the Gen Z global total increase from 2019 is 1260% increase since 2019. It just really backs my whole theory of shoegaze and Spotify coming hand in hand and just really helping younger people kind of get into shoegaze. I also asked, when specifically did you get into shoegaze, and a majority of the answers were between 2019 and 2022, which is generally when the resurgence became a thing. And again, quite a few of them mentioned finding shoegaze albums, specifically My Bloody Valentine and Slow Dive, from music meme pages, which honestly doesn't surprise me because that's how I found a lot of emo bands back in the day. Captain Jazz, American Football, we've been there. As well as during the pandemic, and then from their family and friends kind of throughout their lives. Another big thing that I was curious about was what makes you want to listen to shoegaze? And some of their answers were so genuine and precious, and I just loved it. Sarah mentioned, I really love the emotional response that the genre produces. It makes me feel floaty and calm regardless of the lyrics. While Owen said, listened to too much G-Eazy and My Chem as a kid and wanted to find something with a rock, airy feel. I feel that, Owen. I feel that. Most of the responses mentioned how lush, mellow, and atmospheric the genre was that they weren't hearing in other genres. I think Lara said it best. I feel like it represents our world really well, like kind of dark and loud, but it can also be hopeful and beautiful. Anywho, one of the main reasons I wanted to make this video was because I was so curious of why Gen Z specifically chose shoegaze as kind of the it genre. And being someone who is right on the cusp of a millennial, Gen Zer, I don't know, I'm 26, sue me, I don't know. I could only really take a guess of why I thought this genre was popular, and from what I thought was just TikTok, people seeing it trending, it's kind of been everywhere, everyone's seen it, but hearing it directly from some Gen Zers made me think the complete opposite. A lot of them mentioned feelings of hopelessness, transitional periods, and honestly just wanting a hug, and shoegaze was a genre that emitted all of those feelings that other genres didn't. Sam said, I think the mid-2020s are very similar to the mid-90s in the fact that it feels like we're entering a very transitional period, and a lot of young young people have a lot of anxiety they need to get out. Shoegaze is really good at distracting from those negative feelings, but also empathizing with them. Kai had also mentioned, I think that being sad, lonely, and mysterious has always seemed as cool and as an aesthetic, despite its actual dark reality. This, combined with our interest in short form media, creating videos, emulating a feeling with a song to match, has also contributed. Another quick thought from Bailey, I think a lot of people can relate to shoegaze, whether it's the lyrics or the feelings in your chest that you get from hearing those crazy guitars get going. Shoegaze has a sort of numbing effect, and I think that a lot of people are seeking that feeling in one capacity or another. After going through a majority of the why do you think shoegaze is so popular answers, about half of them said that they think because of TikTok, and then the other half mentioned Gen Z's emotional state and just wanting some comforting music. It's really interesting how many of them think that the resurgence came from TikTok, but going back to our pie chart, it really shows how much people were just getting their music taste from their friends and family. I was also super curious to see when I first got into shoegaze, just again because I'm on the cusp, I don't know. And then I went back to see when I first found My Bloody Valentine and Slow Dive, and funny enough, it was back in February of 2020, right before the pandemic started, on a playlist that I made of songs that reminded me of my partner. Always had me longing for something and just feeling sad and emotional, and also just missing him, so I guess that kind of adds to everyone else's thoughts on why they think shoegaze is popular and why they are drawn towards shoegaze. To summarize it all, shoegaze became a popular genre that people reached out to during the pandemic just because they wanted to feel something and were feeling a little bit sad. And then it ended up on TikTok just like everything else has, and then people just kind of ran with it. And while so many of us thought that so many people became fans of shoegaze through TikTok, it seems as though that genre hit TikTok and just kind of randomly became trending, while most people were finding shoegaze from their family and friends, music streaming platforms, or even movies. And now, 4 years since the beginning of the pandemic, it's grown to be one of the most influential genres of the younger generations, and innovating sounds that we haven't heard in shoegaze before. I've heard it many times before that trends kind of come and go every 30 years. Whether or not how true that is, I don't know, but kind of seeing this resurgence of shoegaze about 30 years later, I feel like it's a great contender. After hearing everything that Gen Z had to say, what sets shoegaze apart from other genres experiencing a resurgence? I think one of its biggest factors is its influence on modern music. There are so many artists today that mention shoegaze as kind of an influence for their sound, yet not fully being a shoegaze band. The thing they take away from shoegaze is the fuzzy guitar tones and kind of that dreamy, atmospheric sound. Genres from indie rock to electronic to the millions of types of gaze genres that we have now. The roots of shoegaze can be heard across the board in the music realm. One last thing that I included in my questionnaire were who are some of your favorite shoegaze bands right now, and in case you needed some recommendations, here was everyone's answers. Screenshot, pause, beep boop, get what you need. In case you're feeling extra lazy, I do have a huge shoegaze playlist called Distorted Shoe with shoegaze from every single era. It's on there. I got you. In a way, the resurgence of shoegaze within the past few years is kind of like a mirror to our current moment in time, seeking beauty in the chaos and embracing the complex layers of our emotional landscape. Whether you've been a shoegaze fan from the beginning or you're just discovering it for the first time, we all have one thing in common. We all just want to numb our thoughts and are just yearning for a connection. And I think shoegaze is a great contender for that.